Now there is a wealth effect also there, and we have partners which are the listed companies, the minority shareholders. If we, our point is that we are also, you know, taking care of GDP, as FMM mentioned, in respect of CPSCs. If you look at the CPSC's performance, whether it comes to capex of 3.2 lakh crore, whether it is their growth story, whether their investment in green energy, whether their performance in return on capital employed, whether you look at return on equity, on all fronts, we are seeing that they are big market players, they continue to improve, and therefore they continue to reward shareholders, including the government. Government is a majority shareholder, but a large part of our shareholders are minority shareholders. So therefore, any strategy, calibrated disinvestment strategy, which will actually do the sum over a period of time, is much more than that. And besides, the shares also give you dividend, and we have a consistent dividend policy too. And money is fungible. So we have to have a new paradigm in terms of thinking about, and not to just keep on parting with our wealth at one stroke. We can always do it in a gradual, calibrated way.
We'll take a question from the right side, ma'am. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Ma'am, I have a question on this committee on demographic change challenges. Ma'am, what would be the mandate? What are the areas it would look at? Will it be urbanization? Will it also include issues around, you know, this whole issue about constituencies, political constituencies, given that the northern states have grown faster? Also, two clarifications. One is on the 70,000 crore with DEA. For new schemes, what kind of schemes apart from solar rooftop are budgeted for? And two, on this issue of tax, these small disputes, does the 25,000 include only the principal amount, or is it interest and penalty for that 25,000?
On the provision for Department of Economic Affairs, this has two components. There are certain specific announcements that have been made, and those are provided for. In addition, there is a large increase in our capital expenditure budget. We have, as was done in the year 2022-23, we have kept this in the Department of Economic Affairs to be allocated to whichever department requires it at the pace that it's able to absorb, so that we have flexibility to allocate it to whichever department is able to absorb it fastest, whether it's railways, highways, telecom. We have all of them, and they are all essentially eligible to take this money when the requirement arises, so that we have flexibility to optimize its utilization.
Hello, ma'am.
As to your, let me answer the second part. As to your question as to whether the 25,000 rupees amount which is remitted being withdrawn, you know, till the year 9-10, and 10,000 being remitted from 10-11 to 14-15. Let me clarify that this is the amount of demand which is mentioned in our books. And so when this demand is actually entered, then it will include even the interest till the point, you know, when the demand was actually assessed and entered. So it includes the interest till that period, that point of time. And any interest which accrues later on is also withdrawn.
Yeah, the front row, left side, please.
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am.
See, when we talk about demography, it is an opportunity, it is a challenge. And the current numbers, how the changes are happening over a period of time. So this committee will have a mandate to have an extensive consideration of those challenges and the opportunities, and come out with a specific set of recommendations.
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am, I am Monica from the New Indian Express. Ma'am, in your budget speech, you mentioned about the India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor. So given the fact that there are conflicts in the Middle East region, so is the project still on track? And also, when the French president was here, was there any discussion on the corridor?
Well, it's been announced and we are taking it forward. Yes, there is significant disturbance in the Red Sea area and the Middle East, but this is a project which has long-term implications for the entire region region up to Europe, because it also includes Europe. So yes, we will be taking this project forward. We will be consulting and taking it in all its contours.
Okay, the second last row
Ma'am,
there.
Himanshu Shekhar from
Himanshu.
here, ma'am, yeah, NDTV India.
Second last row, madam.
मैम एक महत्वपूर्ण घोषणा आपने की है प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना को लेकर। अगले 5 साल में आप 2 करोड़ घर बनाएंगे। क्या ये फैसला हुआ है कि इसमें से कितने घर आप ग्रामीण इलाकों में बनाएंगे और कितने शहरों में, जैसा कि पहले
ग्रामीण,
ग्रामीण के लिए बनाएंगे?
ग्रामीण के लिए 2 करोड़ और
घर बनाएंगे।
हाँ।
और ये 2 करोड़ 95 लाख का जो आपका टारगेट था वो आपने पूरा हो गया है?
3 crore, we are close to achieving 3
Close to
crores.
achieving.
And over and above the 3 crores, ये 2 करोड़।
2 करोड़ है। और इसके लिए फाइनेंशियल कुछ एस्टिमेशन हुआ है, कितना एलोकेशन करेंगे आप?
The allocation is provided for. It will be supplemented when the costing is worked out for these additional. But there is a provision to kick it off in the coming year.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead.
You mentioned the mandate, which I think we wanted a bit more clarity on that. Is it going to be something similar to the population control bill that has been spoken about in the past, or is it going to have a different mandate, which is needed?
Say the budget speech says, and I'm already responded to that. Wait for the terms of reference to come out, and then you will get to know the exact details. But overall approach is, it is a huge opportunity, but there are challenges. Both have to be taken note of, and appropriate responses to be taken. So that's really that broad idea I can share with you, and terms of reference will come out in due course.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Good evening, ma'am. This is Parth Singh from Outlook Business. Since you spoke about bringing the East India to pace in terms of development, I wanted to ask you, how does the government plans to address the industrial gap to help these states in a free market economy? And for example, more than 70% of the PLI projects are currently concentrated into just 3 states. So I wanted to ask you that.
They are not concentrated in 3 states because we want them to be concentrated in 3 states. If there are investments happening, and if there is going to be production in any other non-3 states that you want to talk about, PLI will be extended to them as well. It doesn't go on the criteria of geography. It goes on the criteria of manufacturing. It goes on the criteria of how many additional units are produced.
I just want to add to that. The public sector investments have gone substantially to the eastern region, whether you look at gas pipelines, new fertilizer plants, or even new LHB railway rolling stock, which is being manufactured in Bihar. So a considerable amount of the public sector investment is focused on the eastern region.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, if I can add on this particular one, as we are all aware, aspirational districts program in those districts is making a very significant change. 60% of those districts happen to be in eastern India. And when the people are better educated, etc., then more economic opportunities get generated there because skilled manpower is available in those areas. So we'll see over a period of time, and that is what the government will also be providing appropriate support.
Ma'am, this is Nivedita Mukherjee from the Sunday Garden. This is with regard to the National Monetization Pipeline that was launched in August 9, 2021. And with regard to your focus on infra in this budget, do we see also that going forward, and what has been the progress?
Ma'am, these are 2 different things. A very large part of infra assets are held by those infra agencies or the public sector undertakings. So as they embark upon their more capital investment, they also monetize some of their assets and plow it back. Some of the assets are owned by the government, so those monetization proceeds come to the government. So that one is going on, and that periodically those numbers come out, and if I recall, next year is also a very ambitious number for monetization. But everything doesn't come to the government there.
Ma'am, I have a question. Actually, could you please
Please
elaborate?
identify yourself, then ask a question.
I am Bani Kinkar Patnaik from the Economic Times. Ma'am, could you please elaborate a bit on the proposed changes in the calculation of agricultural income under the new tax regime? And ma'am, on the 75,000 crore loan.
Say under the new tax regime, income from agriculture?
Yes, yes.
Huh?
I mean,
Where are we?
some reports I saw, ma'am, that's why I'm
I'm not here to answer some reports.
We'll go ahead.
Ma'am, on this 75,000 crore, interest-free loans to states, since it is part of 1.3 lakh crore allocation under CapEx, so will the same, reforms conditions continue, or will there be additional reforms conditions?
The specifics will be worked out, and it will be reform linked. What reforms, how much, for what, is something that will come when the guidelines are issued.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, ma'am. This is Vikas from The Hindu. In last year's finance bill debate, during the debate, you had announced the formation of a new committee to review the national pension system benefits to central government employees. And there was an expectation that, by 6 months or so, we might have some outcomes that you could consider. So can we expect that anytime soon, or do you think that might be left for the full budget now? One. And secondly, you've committed your government to, taking forward the next generation reforms. I want to get some sense of what are our priority areas there. And lastly, sorry to take a stab at it again, but this population growth committee that we're looking at, is it likely to happen after the census, because we've not had a census for a while? And as per the National Family Health Survey 2020 numbers that we have, our total fertility rate is already below the replacement rate, around 2. So is there some way that we're looking at keeping our population stable at a certain level, or to reduce it over a broader period?
You may want to help me by saying question number 1, question number 2. I'll go on answering. You seem to have asked me about 5 different questions, right? Please go ahead. What was your first?
Sorry.
NPS,
NPS was first.
Once we are ready with the report, we'll let you know. I don't think there was a time given. We said at the earliest they will give the report. Yeah, so that stays there. What's your second?
Second was, ma'am, some sense of the priority areas for next generation reforms.
Ajay, you want to add in there?
See, you would have noticed that a particular section and extensively covered that what will be the broad strategies for the next several years, getting into those. So those are the indications that can be the broad area for the reforms, the next generation of reforms. But that's not an exhaustive list, but a broad sense you can get it from there.
Yeah.
And the third was, ma'am, the population bit. The third was the population bit, ma'am.
I think Ajay has answered.
Yeah. I think, please confine to one question, because, many questions are still there. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Good evening, ma'am. Janani from NDTV Profit. Ma'am, I would like to get some perspective on some of the scheme outlays. One being the capex infusion to OMCs. In FY24 budget, there was 30,000 for retrofitting, petroleum retrofitting for OMCs. This, in the revised estimate, it was said that 15,000 only would be allotted ahead of the budget, but later we have seen that the same 15,000 amount is there for FY25. Just want to understand if the same has been deferred. And also on the fertilizer subsidy, comparatively it's lesser, so the reason or reasons behind that math.
On the oil marketing company public investment, the requirements were reassessed, and it's also been deferred to next financial year. So it has not been provided in the revised estimate. So it was not that it was provided. We're just coming out with the revised estimate. So it is not going to be in this financial year. It's been provided for in the next financial year. And the second part was?
Fertilizer subsidy.
Fertilizer subsidy is estimated based on recent trends in global ammonia and fertilizer prices, which have been on a downward trend for the last 6 months. So it's our current estimate based on the best information we have right now, which is very different from the prices which were there during the early part of this year.
Adrija from Money Control. You have assumed a nominal GDP of 10.5 for the budget. So that would, just wanted to know the division between the real GDP growth and the deflator. Also, the tax collection growth is seen at 11.5, if I'm not wrong. So there seems to be a more significant gap between the two, which we've seen a trend in the past. One more clarity, I'm sorry for adding. This is with regard to a mention that the average real income of people have increased by 50% with moderate inflation, mentioned in the speech. Just want to clarify, is this linked to investment rate or per capita income? Thank you.
Answer. Again, you have to help me out and you ask 2-3 questions. So again, for the budget purposes, it is the nominal GDP which is relevant. That's how the fiscal deficit and other deficit numbers are done. So that estimate is 10.5%. And I recall last year, again, several of you said that are we underestimating, overestimating, etc. We said we have a realistic number. Of course, this year it has been a little lower, 8.9. So our sense is that next year, 10 and 10.5% nominal growth rate is a reasonable number. As far as real growth is concerned, the breakup is not a budget issue. You would have seen the document which Chief Economic Advisor has brought out just 2 days back, and he has extensively covered his take on what the real growth would be. And so you would have read that document already. Your second question? 50% is I said that announcement, or rather the data which has been shared in the budget, is in real terms. So that has nothing to do with inflation. You are combining the two issues here. There's on a constant prices, income has gone up by 50%. There's yet another statement which is coming up. There has been a moderate inflation. Inflation has been kept within the policy band, except for the post-pandemic period. If you take the 10-year period, it has been well within the policy band. I'll request.
I'll just clarify. I'll just clarify this. I think the reference to the growth in real per capita income is 56% is the growth between FY14 and FY23. That's what ma'am was referring to in her speech. And 57% growth in real per capita GDP. Okay? That is what she was referring to. Thank you.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I'm Meghna Mittal from Money Control. The government has announced in the budget lowering the market borrowing for next financial year, the gross market borrowing. So I just wanted to understand what gives the confidence to the government that they'll be able to lower the market borrowing amid the global challenges and the capex increase that has been announced.
So I think the confidence comes from the numbers that are presented. So if the revenue numbers are realistic, if the expenditure numbers are realistic, then the deficit number is realistic. That deficit number is then broken up into sources of financing. And we have taken a 10.5% nominal growth rate, 11.5% revenue growth rate, which is buoyancy of less than 1.1. This year we have achieved 12 plus with a nominal growth of 8.9. So I think a very decent, very conservative buoyancy has been assumed. In addition, the expenditure numbers are realistic. We have provided for everything. Therefore, the deficit numbers are achievable. And the borrowing breakdown is given here in terms of how much is market, how much is small savings. Small savings, we have shown a declining trend in resources from small savings. We have shown a declining trend in external debt, and that is reflected in these borrowing numbers. So these are very realistic borrowing numbers. On the gross borrowing coming down, next year, some of the repayments of loans taken will not be happening from the consolidated fund. They are repayments of the GST back-to-back loans. So they don't necessarily lead to new gross borrowing. So there is a slight recalibration between the growth of the net, in fact not the growth, the decline in the net borrowing is gentle, the decline in the gross borrowing is steeper, but there is a reason for it. So it's very realistic.
Good evening.
When the GDP is growing, but fiscal deficit is being borrowings are lower, and with that path, it is expected to be lower as well.
Yeah, we'll
Good
take a
evening,
question
ma'am.
from the middle row. Yeah.
Good evening, ma'am. This is Sanjay Agarwal. I first like to congratulate the entire. I'm Sanjay Agarwal. I work for PN News, ma'am. It's a
What news?
newspaper. This is a newspaper, ma'am.
What news?
It's PN News. It's a newspaper. It's a bilingual, ma'am. Yeah. So
PN?
PN News.
How do you spell it?
It's P for press, N for nation.
PN.
PN. Yeah. So first, like to congratulate you. You've made history by presenting the 6th consecutive budget. My question has already been taken by another friend. I want to know that you're talking about income tax demands, as Sir explained, Sanjay ji, that there have been about the borrowings is 14.13 lakh crores, and this, your effect is 3.8 CR. So wouldn't it affect, and wouldn't be like in the future, there are a lot of quote, he said it's going to be, people are going to say, okay, waive off our demands. Is this not going to set a wrong, means, I don't know, what should I call it, ma'am?
See, as I mentioned to you, this should not be seen as a waiver. Because as I mentioned, in the year 10-11, we shifted our records, which were previously maintained at zonal levels or state levels, and which were, mostly paper records. Or if they were, computerized, then, they were held, in computers locally. There was no central record. So in the year 10-11, we shifted this centrally to our central processing center now in Bangalore. A lot of those demands, which are over there, they have actually been paid for by the taxpayers. Because when we reach out to them and we tell them, this is a demand, this is a small demand, of course, but they say, well, we have already paid it. But the records were not with us because they were all decentralized. And so mostly these demands are actually not existing. They are existing on paper, but they are not actual demands. They are mostly fictitious, and they are not going to yield any revenue. Some of them, of course, are very, very small, 1 rupee, 2 rupee, less than 10 rupees. So it's not a waiver. That's why Honorable FM in her speech has not called it a waiver. It's just a withdrawal, it's just a correction of entries.
Ma'am, shall we conclude, or would you like to take 1 or 2 questions more? Yes. We go to the middle row. Yeah. Yeah. No supplementaries. And now, please confine to 1 question now, all of you, the 3 of you.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Congratulations to you and everybody. Karishma this side from Business Today. Ma'am, if you look at the Manrega allocation, if you see the trend for the last few years, whatever has been budgeted, usually the revised allocation goes, of course, slightly a bit more. And if the trend carries on, it could be seen in FY25 also that you may have to allocate more in the next budget. I'd like to understand from that point of view, ma'am, is the center happy with the way the scheme is working, especially in cooperation from the states?
First of all, Manrega allocation is not done on the basis of a trend. It is based on the demand coming from the ground. That is one answer for your first question. But on your second, much more than me commenting, CAG has commented on the way Manrega is operating in some states, where claims are all reaching a stage where they need to be verified. Are they really existing people in the ground? Are people not really those for whom the payments are going? And questions critical to the very spirit, letter and spirit of that program. So to that extent, the CAG reports themselves highlight where course corrections will have to happen in those respective states. I'm not saying a problem existing in one state is the same across board. Some states may do with some kind of a problem, some others do with other kind of problems and so on. So that has to be addressed differently from, are you gradually coming down in terms of allocation? You're putting 2 and 2 together, which may not be right.
Ma'am, hello, this is Surbhi from Business Today magazine. Ma'am, I wanted to understand by when will the white paper that you have announced come out, and will it be done by the Finance Ministry? And secondly, ma'am, on CapEx, do we foresee any slowdown in CapEx this fiscal, because we have about 2 months left now, and we'll have the model code of conduct coming in, so that no. But yeah, of this fiscal, so just wanted your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm quite surprised that questions are already coming saying your increase is not sufficient, is it going to be absorbed or not? I mean, varying words used for that. We believe that CapEx from the government will continue, and we've given a good number this time also, and it is important to continue as well.
Just to add to this point, model code of conduct, no new work can be started. So whenever the model code of conduct work come, now in the balance 2 months of the current financial year, ongoing works will go on with full pace. There is absolutely no bar on continuing with those works.
Ma'am, this is Sumit Chaturvedi from ET Now. Again, the question is, you said there will be white paper on pre and post 2014 economy. What is the timeline for that? You said it will be coming soon.
Just to add a similar question, because what would be the parameters on which both periods comparison will happen, because they were both the different periods with different kind of challenges?
Comparison is always between two different periods only. I can't compare myself today, this minute, can I? They have to be varying periods to compare. It has to be so.
On the timeline, ma'am? Yeah.
Huh? Wait when the white paper is laid down.
Yeah.
The last question, please.
I am Nikunj Ohri from Reuters, requesting some clarity on the gross borrowing, lowering of the gross borrowing, market borrowing for next year. One of the annexure to the document, budget document, says that maturing debt would be met through GST compensation fund. So, wanted you to clarify whether this relates only to the back-to-back loans that were given to states earlier.
Absolutely,
Yes.
only to that.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you very much. I mean, it was an elaborate press conference. And thank you very much for your presence, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Vijay,